from the 25. Roethlisberger pulls it back, throws, has Juju Smith-Schuster. What a start to the night. One play, bang, touchdown
Steelers. Eagles take over at the 17. Foles steps up. Foles delivers. Deep one-on-one. It's caught. Aguilar. 5-5. Touchdown. Eagles.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the new edition of the Heated Sports Podcast. My name is Justin Imler. Across from me, we have Kevin Eagleson. We're going to be your two pretty much hosts every single week for this football edition of the Heated Sports Podcast. Just a quick introduction of Heated Sports in case you're new to us, starting with this episode. Heated Sports is a small sports brand that I've started here back in late February with a group of college friends and work friends of mine. Pretty much just sharing our knowledge and our thoughts on the world of sports, covering a variety of different topics. We have a website, www.heated-sports.com. We go into a lot of different details. We have articles that go out every single week, usually 3 to 4 pieces a week, just on a variety of different topics that are relevant to the time. We also have information on there about old podcast episodes, information about all of us, a part of the Heated Sports team. So just make sure you go and check that out. We also have social media accounts, Twitter and Instagram. Just a lot of good posts on there that we have throughout the week, at HeatedSports_ for both of those. But yeah, we're back starting up the podcast right in time for football season. We're still have a couple weeks until the NFL gets started up. But yeah, I'm excited to be back. I mean, we have a lot of great topics we're going to go over today. We're going to be touching on a lot of NFL, fantasy football, and college football topics throughout the next several weeks. Today in particular, it's going to be a lot of NFL preseason stuff, a lot of holdout news with a lot of the players that are in a lot of people's heads about in their current holdouts with their teams. Also going over a lot of fantasy football advice in the back end of your show. So the two of us are going to try to help you guys win your leagues a little bit to start up the season. So first things first, we're just going to get started. So Kevin and I actually did a little collab article a few weeks ago going in depth for our NFL preseason power rankings. So we ranked all 32 teams 1 to 32 on who we thought was at the top to start the regular season here in early September. So first things first, I'm going to go over the top 5. So starting out the top 5, the two of us decided on, we have the Kansas City Chiefs starting up at number 1, New Orleans Saints following at 2, the New England Patriots at number 3, Philadelphia Eagles at 4, and then rounding out the top 5 are the Los Angeles Chargers. So, man, this was a couple weeks ago we put these rankings together. Are you standing by what we had out there, or are you making some changes maybe? What are your thoughts on our top 5?
Yeah, definitely a lot has changed in the NFL since we made these rankings. These were preseason, so no one had played, no one was injured, and since then a lot has happened, suspensions, everything like that. As for the top 5, Chiefs, I think, are the locked and loaded number 1 team. I think most of the people that you ask will give the same response. Saints at number 2, I still like a lot. I think they have a loaded roster. Drew Brees is still playing very well. I think they are destined for a good year and a nice playoff push. The Patriots at 3, I mean, you got to have the Patriots top 5. They're going to be back at it again. Josh Gordon coming back does help the passing attack a lot. Eagles at 4, I still love. I think their roster is loaded, possibly one of the best in the NFL. And then really the only one of the teams out of the top 5 that I might not have there anymore is the Chargers, mainly because of Melvin Gordon possibly holding out into the regular season. He is a huge piece of that offense. Also notably, Derwin James could miss significant time too. He's definitely a key player on that defense as well. So they wouldn't drop too far, but maybe not quite in the top 5 for me personally.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think the Chargers and Melvin Gordon is the big question mark in that top 5. I think with Derwin James being injured, I mean, that's a huge hit on that defense. He's a great emerging young player. But if Melvin Gordon is miraculously there week 1, I will be stand by our Chargers spot at number 5. I think that's still an overall great roster. We'll get into Melvin Gordon and his holdout situation in a lot more detail in a few minutes. But yeah, I mean, as far as those other 4, I love Philly a lot. I think really the main question mark on that team is just Carson Wentz's health. I mean, it seems like he's going to be back and be fine 100% starting the season, but this is a guy that hasn't played a full season since his rookie year. So, I mean, there's definitely some cause for concerns there. An ACL and then a back last year. Like, if you're a quarterback, those aren't just, like, easy injuries. Like, those are, like, some pretty significant injuries, especially for a quarterback. But, hopefully he's okay. He's one of my favorite players. I love Carson, so wishing him the best. I mean, I think Philly's going to be stacked, and if Carson's there the whole season, they're going to be a great playoff team. New England is just funny to me because, I mean, coincidentally, like, they're back in the top 5. They're always going to be for the future until Brady's gone. But like, just their roster, like, if you're looking at their roster compared to like the Saints, Chiefs, Eagles, like, their roster should not be up in the top 5, but it is because they're always finishing in that Super Bowl conversation every single year. Adding some new weapons on the passing attack, Josh Gordon just getting reinstated, so that's a nice bonus for them as well heading into the season. I'll ask you this just right off of the gate. Rob Gronkowski retires after the Super Bowl last year. What are the odds he's coming back at some point during the season?
Oh, ever since he retired, I've been a complete believer. He's not done with football. I think he loves it too much, and I think it's just going to be too tempting. The back half of the season, Patriots are, again, one of the best teams in the AFC, looking to make a playoff push. He's completely healthy. He hasn't played. He's not banged up. I mean, he's never had this opportunity before in his career. He can come back and help the team make another playoff push, which I think would really impact the team, and I think he'd love it. I think it's going to be too hard for Gronk to stay away from the game.
So, like, I'm just picturing, like, okay, Patriots start off a little slow, which they can do. They have done sometimes off and on the last couple years. So, yeah, start off 2-3, right? I don't know what their specific schedule is, but say they lose to my Pittsburgh Steelers week 1, people raise a little concerns. New England starts 2-3, and, you know, Mr. Tom Brady just shoots a little text to Rob Gronkowski saying, hey, man, what's up? And then Gronk just says, all right, yeah, I'm in. Just doesn't need any convincing. Like, I think especially if, like, the Patriots, like, start off slow, Gronk will be watching, obviously paying very close attention, and I think he'll be anxious to get back and help the team. Like, this is still his team. Like, it's pretty much the same exact roster that he's had the last couple years. So he'll want to get back with the guys, I think. Yeah, like, he finished the Super Bowl season, like, he was healthy. He didn't have any, like, nagging injuries that would have, like, bled into the preseason or anything. I think if they start off hot and, like, the New England starts off, like, very good, like, I don't know, because, I mean, unless Gronk would really, like, be anxious and reach out to them, like, I don't know if New England's going to reach out to him unless they need him, which, I mean, they really are kind of lacking a tight end. Like, they got veteran Ben Watson, but I'm pretty sure he's suspended the first 4 games anyway, so they have some young guys in there that I'm sure that with Brady at quarterback, Belichick coaching the offense, and McDaniels too, but, I mean, I think they'll be fine. But we'll just kind of have to see how they start off, because, like I said, they do sometimes start off slow, starting the seasons. But I'll go into the next 5. So rounding out our top 10 in the power rankings, coming in at number 6, we have the second LA team, the LA Rams, going in at number 6. Indianapolis Colts at 7, Dallas Cowboys at 8, Chicago Bears at 9, and then my Pittsburgh Steelers rounding out the top 10. So go ahead, man. Same thing. Like, do you have any concerns with that 6 through 10? Are you still confident heading into the regular season where we're at right now? What do you think?
Yeah, 6 through 10. A couple teams are jumping out at me right away. First of all, it's going to be the Colts. I still like the Rams right there at 6. I think they're a really talented roster. Not much has changed there. We know Todd Gurley's not quite going to be the same workhorse he was, but we knew that when we made these rankings. So we have the Colts there at 7, and Andrew Luck's health is a question mark once again. Looks to be a calf injury, I think. Wasn't sure at first, but we don't really know how much time he's going to miss. And any week that Luck is not playing and starting as their quarterback, the Colts are like a middle-of-the-pack team. Their defense, I think, is still going to be elite, but they're just not the same without Luck. They're definitely not a top 10 team, in my opinion, if he misses any time. So that concerns me right there. The Cowboys without Elliott, I'm not too concerned about. I still think they're going to be a talented team, maybe not quite that high, but like the Colts, they have an elite defense, and I think they have enough offensive weapons to make up for maybe missing Zeke for a week or two if it comes to that. The Bears are a team I'm going the opposite direction on. I think we need them higher, especially since watching David Montgomery in preseason. I think Montgomery is going to be amazing. That's something the Bears defense obviously was number 1 last year. Their offense was not as consistent, and it starts with the running game. They never really had that workhorse back. They had Jordan Howard, but I don't think Nagy really liked him as the workhorse. They ended up using Tariq Cohen a lot more than they probably would have. And I think David Montgomery is everything that Matt Nagy wanted in a running back that Jordan Howard wasn't. I think they're going to use him a ton, and I think it's going to really improve the Bears offense, and it's going to help Mitchell Trubisky. It's going to make Trubisky better. So in my opinion, I put the Bears a little bit higher, definitely over the Cowboys at this point with the Zeke question mark. And the Steelers at 10. Nothing's really changed there. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll ask you this. Like, I'll ask a fantasy question here a little early. I mean, like PPR leagues, which is pretty popular nowadays. I mean, you have Tariq Cohen in there, who is like a PPR monster. But I mean, a lot of questions now with David Montgomery. It sounds like Nagy wants to use him as like that 3-down back. Like, he's going to be on the field a lot. So, like, you were already hyping him up. Like, are you a believer? So, I mean, if you believe that much in David Montgomery, that means Cohen's really going to be like, I won't say an afterthought. Like, he'll still get some time on the field, but you don't think he's going to be as significant as he was last year?
I do think Cohen is still going to be significant, and having two extremely talented running backs like the Bears do, it would be difficult for most coaches, but I think Nagy, if there's one coach that can handle having 2-star running backs, it's going to be him. I think he's going to find a way to utilize both their talents because they are still a little bit different. He can find ways to use Tariq Cohen, if not in the running game, in the passing game. So, yeah, Cohen is definitely not going to be out of the picture. He's going to be still a part of that Bears offense and contribute a lot, but I do think Montgomery is going to end up taking over sooner rather than later as that almost every down back. And he's also going to get a lot of receptions too. So he's going to take away a little bit from Cohen, but I think Cohen is still going to get a decent amount of touches.
I mean, with that defense, I still like the Bears roster a lot. So, I mean, I could definitely see them going a little higher after the first couple weeks. I mean, you forgot one pretty significant detail, though, so I'm going to call you out on that. The Los Angeles Rams currently have one of the most popular backup quarterbacks in all of football in boat, Mr. Blake Bortles. You have the jersey right here, so I'm a little upset that you kind of forgot about that, but Can't forget about the significant presence that is Blake Bortles with the LA Rams going into the season. But
QB controversy?
I don't. Man, probably not. But hey, I'm a believer in Blake Bortles. Not actually, but who knows? I mean, I'm good. I'm glad he got some sort of backup role. I think he deserved a backup role, but I just thought it was funny. And you forgot to mention it. You love Blake Bortles, so I had to throw that out there. But yeah, I mean, you pretty much nailed it on. Hit the nail on the head with the Luck injury in the Colts. I mean, the Colts are going to plummet in power ranking, looking at power rankings if Luck's out for a significant time. I mean, no knock on Jacoby Brissett. I think he's a great backup quarterback, probably one of the top in the league. But with how competitive the league is right now, I mean, if Jacoby Brissett's in there, that team isn't going to win a lot of games, just regardless, even with the weapons that you said they have around them. So yeah, I mean, that's our top 10. We're going to go into the bottom 5 now. So the teams we had going from 28 to 32. And again, this full article of power rankings will be in the description of this video. So if you want to check out the full list of power rankings that we have entering the season, be sure to check that out. So yeah, rounding out the bottom 5, we have the Detroit Lions, Washington Redskins, Cincinnati Bengals, Miami Dolphins, and then the New York Football Giants are rounding out at number 32 of our power rankings. Probably a decent amount of Giants fans watching this, so we apologize in advance, but with all the injuries / suspensions and just concerns at quarterback, I mean, there's a lot to kind of look at, and I think there's things to be excited about for the Giants. Like, I'm a believer in Daniel Jones. The more I've watched, the more I've read up on him. Even in preseason, he's looked really good. So I'm a believer in Daniel Jones when or if he even comes in to play this season. But right now, with all the injury and suspensions, the Giants are rounding it out. So I'll ask this. We won't go into too much detail with these guys, but out of those 5 teams I listed, who do you think actually has a shot to surprise us and some other people this season? Maybe not like being a playoff contender, but actually like playing above their expectations.
Yeah, I think bottom 5 is always difficult. I mean, there are always teams you expect to be terrible, and they end up being all right. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins won 5 or 6 games, but the team that I would not be surprised if they ended up kind of like middle of the pack, not too bad. It's not going to be the Giants. Sorry, it's just they're not ready yet.
Not this year.
Daniel Jones has owned the preseason. Like, nobody's looked better in preseason than Daniel Jones, in my opinion. But it's too early, too many injuries, and just not enough surrounding him. I'm going to go with the Redskins, another NFC East team. Just because in preseason, their defense has looked elite, like borderline elite. They've looked really good. Offense is kind of a question mark. We don't know who's going to be starting at quarterback, but I think either way, whether it's Haskins or whether it's Case Keenum, they're going to be...
Colt McCoy.
Is it?
No, I was just putting him. Hey,
he's on the roster.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's in the mix. Like, like Gruden has said, like Colt McCoy is very much in this like quarterback like competition essentially. So yeah, Colt McCoy is still in the mix. I mean, I doubt it's gonna happen, but I love Colt McCoy, so I had to throw his name in there too.
But yeah, like I was saying, no matter who is the starting quarterback, I think they're gonna be serviceable. I think they'll be able to put some points on the board and have that defense pretty much carry them to some wins. I don't think they're gonna be a playoff team for sure. I mean, I for sure don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but they might end up maybe like 7, 8 wins.
7 and 9, 8 and 8. Yeah, I mean, I'll chime in there quick because you didn't mention Landon Collins, who is probably one of the biggest like free agency signings, just to beef up that defense even more.
Yeah.
Because like this team had like backups upon backups playing last season with their injuries, and they were still like a 6-7 win team last season. Like they still played a lot, being carried by that defense. I love Darius Geis. Obviously, we didn't get to. He was the second running back off the board behind Saquon in the 2018 draft. Didn't get to see any of them last season after tearing an ACL in training camp or preseason, but he's back at full health this season. I'm going to go into detail with him a little bit later in our fantasy football segment, but I love Geis there. I think Keenum's going to start the season.
Yeah.
The Giants and Redskins have very similar situations, right? So they have veteran quarterbacks, proven veterans in there now with those top quarterback draft picks that they had this year. I think it's going to be the same situation for both. I think Eli and Keenum start the season, and you kind of just play it out. If they play well or if they surprise some people, then they're just going to play it out with them for this season. If they start playing well, start tanking a little bit, just not meeting expectations, then the rookies are going to get thrown in there, which I personally don't like, throwing a rookie into a dumpster fire of a situation, but that's most likely how it's going to play out, I think.
Yeah, I think we're going to see both of them this year.
Yeah. I'll touch on the Lions just for a second. I like the Lions. I like the weapons that they've kind of built around Matt Stafford. I'm not really a believer in Matt Stafford. I think he's an average quarterback right now. But I think Kerryon Johnson takes that next step this year. With Theo Riddick gone, Kerryon's the main back there. You have other receivers. They got Danny Amendola. He'll be a nice like little safety blanket for Stafford in the slot, I think. And they got T.J. Hawkinson. That was their first draft pick, the stud tight end out of Iowa. So that's just another weapon for Stafford on offense. But I think, at the very best, the Lions may be a middle-of-the-pack team. That division with the Packers, Vikings, and Bears is stacked. So, I mean, there's really not too much hope for them this year, I would say. But I just wanted to touch on that a little bit, too.
So Lions are your pick for most likely to surprise?
Lions or Redskins, yeah. Like, I like the Redskins. I mean, I don't know. Like, Keenum obviously was great with the Vikings a few years ago, taking them to the NFC Championship game. So, I mean, if that case Keenum comes back, then, I mean, why not, right? Like, with that defense, I think they could still win some games. Not a believer in the Bengals. I mean, we're both AFC North guys. Bengals are going to be at the bottom of the pack there.
Yeah, I do not believe in them at all.
Yeah, I like Zach Taylor. I like the head coaching hire. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know. I don't like Andy Dalton. A.J. Green's injured again. They did sign Tyler Boyd long-term, but I think the Bengals still have a few more years.
I was going to say, also losing that offensive lineman, their first pick, Jonah Williams.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That
So
really hurts.
out
That's
for the
more
season.
significant than people realize. It's going to hurt the running game, and then not having A.J. Green, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, so the offense is going to be pretty banged up starting the season. Yeah, moving on from Marvin Lewis was like 5 years too late, in my opinion, but they finally did it. So, honestly, that's all they needed to do, a step in the right direction for the Cincinnati Bengals. But, yeah, still a few years away. So we're going to transition here to the main next segment. So, that was our full power rankings we put out a couple weeks ago. Be sure to check that out. Link is going to be in the description for those. And we're going to update those after every week. So we're going to stick with these rankings, barring any significant suspensions, huge injuries, season-ending injuries. We'll stick with these rankings until week 1. And then after every single regular season week, we'll go ahead and update those and make some changes. But, so go ahead and check that out if you want to see the rest of our rankings. Now we're going to transition to some significant NFL holdouts. So, again, we've put out several articles throughout the recent weeks between the two of us about some significant players that are holding out. In the obvious ones, running backs Ezekiel Elliott, Melvin Gordon, and others, Jadeveon Clowney, and left tackle for the Redskins, Trent Williams, who most people really aren't talking about those two as much, so we'll touch on those as well. But between those four that I mentioned, I'll just throw it to you real quick. Which one of those do you think is most valuable for their teams? Or, like, who do you think will miss their player the most? Say all of them would hold out for a significant amount of time.
Yeah, most valuable to their team. I'm going to go with the running back that you maybe wouldn't expect. I'm going to say it's Melvin Gordon. I think that
ahead of Zeke, yeah.
Yep, I'm going to say that Chargers offense is loaded, and Phillip Rivers has turned 38. He doesn't have that much time left. They're ready to make a playoff run, possibly a Super Bowl. Could be in their future, but without Melvin Gordon, I'm not sure if it's going to be as easy for the team.
All right, so I'm just going to stop you. Like, I have to cut you off a little bit. Like, over Zeke Elliott.
Yes.
Like, one of the top running backs in all of football, Zeke Elliott. You think Gordon's more valuable?
I do.
Can you name me? Because I could not name them either. I looked them up before we started. Can you name me the running backs that will play if Zeke's out for the regular season?
Zeke, I believe Tony Pollard will step in and become probably the workhorse of that offense.
Yeah.
He won't be getting Zeke touches, but I think he'll get most of them. they have Alfred Morris still.
I don't know if Alfred Morris is on the roster or not. I looked at the depth chart, and right now it's like a 50-50 from what I've read between Tony Pollard and Mike Weber is the other guy. Like, I'm honestly impressed you knew Pollard off the top of your head, because I just threw that at you. But yeah, I mean, like, Tony Pollard and Mike Weber, two unknown guys. I like Austin Ekeler and Justin Jackson. Like, they're not, even combined, they're not the skill level that Melvin Gordon is, but they can utilize those two guys a lot, like between the two of them in that offense, I think. And they were 4-0 without Melvin Gordon last year. So when those two guys were the primary running backs, Melvin Gordon was injured, they won all 4 of those games. And I mean, that's a small sample size, but I mean, it's tough to argue that Zeke's not going to be valuable to that team, and that, like, they're not going to miss them and they'll be okay without him. Yeah,
but during that 4-week run where Melvin Gordon was missing time for injury, I have a stat here. Rivers' passer rate in the entire season was a 103.8, which is very high. Without Melvin Gordon, it dropped to a 75.3. It was only for 4 games, not a huge sample size, but not having Gordon hurts Rivers.
That's 35% drop. Like, that's still pretty huge. Yeah, that's a good stat.
The biggest thing for me is the difference in their quarterbacks. The Dallas Cowboys having Dak. I mean, he's not great, but he's young. I think with the weapons he has, he will be able to survive without Zeke. I think Rivers is hurt more by not having Gordon, in my opinion. I think it's going to hurt him, which in turn will just hurt that entire offense more. Justin Jackson and Austin Ekeler, together, they might be an all right rushing attack. I don't think either of them will be able to turn into that workhorse. They're both too small.
Yeah, I'll say they're both, like, in size, they're small. I mean, Justin Jackson's still young, so I think he still has some potential to grow. I mean, not physically grow, but as like an NFL running back, I think he definitely has some room for improvement and can improve. But yeah, I mean, they both, that's a good point. They are both very small. They're not the biggest backs you would probably want to have on your roster. But
the biggest thing for me is just because I actually believe in Tony Pollard. The Cowboys invested some draft capital in him. I think he was a 3rd-round pick. He's looked decent in preseason, and I don't know. I think if Zeke misses any time, he'll be able to be a viable running back, especially behind that above, or almost like probably top 3 offensive line.
Yeah. Dallas's O-line has been good for a while. I'll just touch on those other 2 guys I mentioned real quick. So Jadeveon Clowney is still holding out for the Houston Texans. I'm not very concerned about Clowney. I don't think many people are either, which is why he hasn't been talked about so much. I mean, Clowney's going to be back week 1. Long story short, the Texans have been trying to franchise tag him, get him to go under that franchise tag. Clowney's refusing, a very like Le'Veon Bell type situation, not wanting the franchise tag, thinks he deserves a long-term deal, which, I mean, I agree, he does. He's a really great great DN. So, I mean, he's been a huge force for the Houston Texans defense. He deserves a long-term deal. Doesn't look like he's going to get it. But I think he'll sign that franchise tag come week 1. Like, it sounds like both sides, both Clowney's party and the Texans expect him to be back. Yeah. Trent Williams, on the other hand, I mean, we were just talking about the Redskins. He's just a left tackle, so he's not a huge star like DN, running back, like these other positions we're talking about. But he's a great player, and like the Redskins could really use him for that offensive line. Whether it's Haskins in there, but either way, it's a very young team, so you could use that veteran presence, a very talented presence on the O-line. Not really much has been said about him. I mean, I don't know how the situation is going to play out. If he doesn't get that new deal, he could actually be the one to sit out like significant time. So that's kind of something to keep an eye on. Redskins fans, I'm sure they're kind of just anxiously waiting to get some news on that, but just thought I'd highlight him as well because he's really not getting any attention in like the media right now, even though he is a very great player.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if I was a Redskins fan, I'd be a little bit nervous. I think all the other players, there's a much better chance we see them week 1. Clowney, I think for sure we're going to see. The only way we don't see him on the Texans week 1 would be if for some reason a team trades for him, which I think the chances of that are very slim. So we're almost certainly going to see Clowney on the field week 1.
You said you want your Ravens to trade for him, though, don't you? Or no?
No, I would not. We would have to give
cost is too high.
Too much capital. Yeah. For the Texans, I think we'd end up giving up probably one of our young tackles, Ronnie Stanley or Lil Zeus. And a significant draft pick, too.
Yeah.
I would not. I would be unhappy.
All right, guys. So we're going to answer a few more questions regarding these guys. We're going to take a short break, though, and we'll be right back. All right, guys. So we're back. So we're going to continue our conversation with these players that are currently holding out for new contracts. So I'm just going to reach back around to the 2 running backs, Ezekiel Elliott, Melvin Gordon. Between those 2, I honestly think that Melvin Gordon is going to be the one that has a much higher chance of going into the regular season without being on the football field. It's pretty clear that both sides, reports have come out that they're really not any closer to a new deal. Melvin Gordon requesting that trade, but honestly, I think if a trade would have, it was going to happen, it would have happened by now, I think. I think the Chargers are set on keeping Gordon on the roster and trying to get a deal done. And I think Gordon has his foot in the his feet in the ground, and he's stuck, and he's not going to budge on like his negotiations. So he has a number set in his mind, and I think he's just going to try to wait and see if the Chargers come up and like offer it to him, honestly. So I mean, if that doesn't happen, I don't think Gordon's going to hesitate to hold out. Zeke, on the other hand, why I have confidence in Zeke that's going to stay and come back come week 1 is just because of Jerry Jones. Like, I've been kind of preaching this off and on, but I don't think Jerry Jones will let the Dallas Cowboys start week 1 without Ezekiel Elliott on the football field. So I think it's going to happen. I mean, Zeke is still working out. Apparently he's in great shape. I read a couple articles saying that he's still doing a very preseason training camp like workout regimen off to wherever the heck he's traveling at right now, but he's still staying in great shape. I think he's going to be ready, and I think he's going to show up. So between those two running backs, let me ask you, because obviously they both want groundbreaking, like record-setting contracts for running backs. Between the two, which one do you think is more likely to actually get done? I'll just read some numbers here. So right now, the running back payday, essentially, looking at the top paid running backs, Gurley is making about $15 million a year with his new deal. Le'Veon Bell just signed with the Jets. He's at $14.5 million. Then coming in at 3 is David Johnson for the Cardinals at $13, and then Devontae Freeman at number 4, taking a big drop. Freeman's only making $8.25 million a year. So between like those 4 guys, who do you think gets paid what? Do you think they overtake Gurley at the top spot, or what do you think that like it's a reasonable thing to expect?
Absolutely. I think there is no chance that Zeke does not become the highest paid running back in the league. He's just, ever since he's entered, he's been the most productive. There's no question about it. And the difference between him and Gordon is Zeke has been consistent. I mean, there was the suspension, but I'm talking more about injury here. Gordon's had a little bit of difficulty staying on the field, especially with his knee injuries in the past. So that's the biggest thing right there, why I think Zeke deserves to be paid the huge contract a little bit over Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon's still going to get paid, and he'll probably fall right in there, maybe around like 2 or 3, maybe just behind Todd Gurley if I had to guess right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, no question, Zeke's getting the biggest running back contract in the NFL.
No, I agree with you. I mean, between the two, it's pretty obvious that Zeke deserves it a lot more over Melvin Gordon, just with the numbers he's put up, and he's just stayed on the field. Like you touched on Melvin Gordon being a little injury prone throughout his young career. I did a pretty in-depth article on the whole Melvin Gordon situation and gave my thoughts on it, and I'm sticking with my opinion. If a deal is going to get done between the Chargers and Melvin Gordon, it's not going to be record-breaking. I think he's going to be in the conversation. I said about a deal between $12 and $13 million a year. So that would maybe, at 13, would tie him for the 3rd highest paid running back with David Johnson. But that's still like in that top tier. And I mean, I think that's reasonable. Like, I don't think Melvin Gordon is a guy that deserves to just completely alter the running back market with what he's done. Don't get me wrong. Great player, great running back, huge asset to the Chargers, but he's not in that Gurley, Le'Veon, Ezekiel Elliott conversation, I don't think. I mean, I would just do maybe like tier 1A, tier 1B type thing. So putting Gordon in that 1B conversation.
Yeah, that's definitely a reasonable contract. I agree with what you said, 12 to 13 million. It's just a question of whether he's going to be willing to take it, because it's his belief that he deserves a little bit more.
Exactly.
But time will tell. If nothing's going anywhere, he may just kind of drop back a little bit and settle for 13 million a year.
I'll say it's kind of hard saying settling for that significant of a deal, but I mean that's probably what it would come down to if he's going to see the field this year. All in all, though, you had a pretty hot take in a recent article with Ezekiel Elliott, and you gave a pretty convincing argument that Dallas should consider trading Zeke Elliott instead of signing him to this mega deal. So go ahead and just touch on that here for a second. I want to hear an in-depth opinion.
All right, yeah, this is one of my favorite articles I've written so far. It's a pretty interesting topic. I think this is probably the unpopular opinion, but I believe the Dallas Cowboys, it's in their best interest to trade their star running back, Ezekiel Elliott. Clearly the most productive running back in the league, like I said, but I think it'd be more beneficial for them to trade them. They have so many players on that team that they need to pay. They have on the defense, they have Byron Jones. They just locked up DeMarcus Lawrence, and kind of drawing a blank on the rest of their defense.
I mean, I'll look into the future. Taco Charleston, who was their top pick. I mean, he's on a rookie deal, but he's going to need paid in the near future as well on the defensive side, because that guy's a stud, and I mean, he played great for Dallas. And Van Der Esch. I mean, two young rookies I think Taco Charleston was their first round pick 2 years ago. Van Der Esch was their first round pick last year. So very talented rookies and young players out of the gate that down the road they're also going to have to pay, because I think their defense has improved, so they're going to have to try to pay all these guys within the next couple years.
Yeah, Jalen Smith was the guy I was forgetting about on their defense. He's going to want a new deal probably within the next year, and he's a key part of that defense, just covering the entire field. He's so fast. So that's their main defensive players that are crucial because I believe their defense is elite.
I'll say you're not even hitting the main guys on offense yet. Like that. Like that's the problem. Yeah.
Like the offense alone.
That's all anybody's talking about. It's just the offensive guys. Yeah.
The offense alone will be nearly impossible to play. The top three, Dak, Amari, and Zeke, they're all gonna probably get contracts valuing them at a top 5 to their relative position, and that's just not going to happen if you pay Zeke an insane contract. You're going to have to let players go, and it's going to hurt the Cowboys more than it helps them. And I don't think people have to remember, like, Zeke's been a bit of a problem for the Cowboys, production aside. He's been a headache off the field, a lot of legal issues, and I just think it'd be in their best benefit to value other positions over running back, because running back, it's not the most valuable position on the offense or on the team.
Yeah, and it's not. And I'll close out with this before we transition again. I mean, I think overall the running back position is not valued very well, but when you have a guy like Zeke, like, I think Zeke is just a very special exception. Like, I think Zeke's a guy that you need to focus on paying, because mostly the offense is surrounded by the quarterback. I think in Dallas's case, it revolves around Zeke. Personally, I think you can get away with, like, I don't know how, like, likely this would be, but, like, if you want to, like, hypothetically get all three of those offensive guys done, sign Zeke, give him the deal that he's going to need, franchise tag like Dak, like, give Dak a top 5 quarterback salary for this year, and then focus on signing him next year. And then Amari Cooper, I think, still has another year on his deal, so he could potentially wait as well. It doesn't sound like Amari is acting like Zeke and, like, threatening to hold out if he doesn't get a deal done now. So if he's being reasonable like that, then just wait till next year to get that deal done as well. That would give them some more leeway room if they would end up signing Zeke. But all in all, it's a tough situation to get all those guys paid. Yeah. My main argument against trading Zeke would just simply be your argument with the Ravens, or you not wanting the Ravens to trade for Clowney. It's going to cost so much to get guys like that, whether it's Gordon or Zeke. And then on top of it, you have to pay them, like, the mega deal on top of it. So it's just, I don't know. I mean, giving up all those assets to get the player and then signing them to the mega contract that they're demanding, that's a big hole to put your franchise in. Could it work out? It definitely could work out, but, I mean, who knows at the end of the day, so.
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys would definitely get a lot of capital in return if they would find a team interested in trading for him. A couple teams that I was looking at, probably a team with a young quarterback. Bills, Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Could go for the league's best running back, or possibly even the Dolphins, but it'd probably take a first-round pick and some player or two as well.
Yeah. All right, yeah, guys, so we're going to take another quick brief intermission here. We're going to transition to get into some pretty big fantasy football conversations, some sleeper picks for the two of us. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Stick with us. All right, guys, so we're back, and now it's time for some very anticipated fantasy football talk. It is reaching draft season, so we just figured we had to go over a lot of these main topics here. So first things first, I mean, just the obvious topic, who's going number 1 overall? Personally, I don't have the first pick. I don't have a top pick in any of my drafts. I'm kind of towards the back end on all of my drafts coming up. But I mean, the tier 1 top 3 running backs, I think, that are in that conversation: Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara. And in all honesty, that's the order that I'm putting them in as well. So, like, if I had, like, one of those top 3 picks, like, that's kind of what I'm looking at. Most of this conversation is going to be in PPR format, because that's pretty much, like, I think emerging as the most popular type of fantasy league compared to standard, and that's pretty much what all of my leagues have been. I don't know about yours. I think you said you guys have been transitioning to PPR as well. So a lot of PPR relevant picks that we're going to be making here, but you really can't go wrong with any of those 3 guys. I think they're the clear 1, 2, 3 though. Getting into like 4, 5, 6, you start getting into guys like David Johnson, like Le'Veon Bell, and then you get into like the top receivers that we'll get into in a second. But those top 3, I think if you interchange them, I'm not going to make fun of you or like argue with you if you would take Kamara or McCaffrey first overall, Barkley second or third, whatever. But I love Saquon. He's going to be an absolute workhorse. Even though like there's not many weapons around him with the Giants, they still have some good pass catchers. Even when Golden Tate comes back, Evan Ingram's a monster. I love Evan Ingram this year. So when you have guys like that, like Barkley's not going to be the sole focus, I don't think, even though he'll obviously be a pretty significant target. But PPR format as well. All 3 of these guys are going to be catching a lot of balls out of the backfield every week. So all in all, Kamara, McCaffrey, Barkley, all 3 are going to be huge monsters in fantasy this year. You can't go wrong with any of them. again, I think there's a very, very small drop-off when you get into 4, 5, and 6. So I'm definitely looking at those 3. But do you agree with me, man? Are you taking Barkley first if you have that pick?
Actually, I would put Christian McCaffrey as the number 1 overall pick. It's really close. I mean, kind of splitting hairs at this point. But I just believe in the Panthers offense a little bit more, especially if Cam Newton is looking to be healthy for the season. That's the only reason why I just take McCaffrey slightly over Saquon Barkley. And then Alvin Kamara, he's definitely top 4 or 3. But the only thing that scares me is Latavius Murray.
I was just gonna, if
he was the only running back on that offense, or like only running back as Saquon and also
McCaffrey
Christian McCaffrey are. If he was like them with no one behind him, I'd take Kamara number 1, but he's got Murray. Murray's going to vulture some touchdowns, and for that reason, I don't put him top 2.
Yeah, no, like I said, I mean, I'm not going to argue with anybody. I definitely think McCaffrey would be my second choice. Like I said, I put him as number 2. But I mean, yeah, Latavius Murray could very well have like a Mark Ingram type role in that offense. Murray is still a very talented running back, so small cause for concern. I'm still taking Kamara number 3 with a lot of confidence. I'm not dropping him any more than that. But we'll transition to wide receivers now, so I'll have you take over here. At what position in like the first round are you reaching for a wide receiver instead maybe one of those 6 running backs that I mentioned earlier?
I would personally be confident in taking a wide receiver. I think the magic number is 6 overall. Definitely those top 4. I would still put Zeke in there because I do believe he's
I'll say I don't even think Zeke's that other like rounding out those 6 running backs. Because again, we're both assuming that he'll be back to start the season.
Number 5, I would probably take David Johnson over a wide receiver just because of the position. I believe that he'll be more valuable. But once you get to 6, I would not mind passing on Le'Veon Bell at all for a receiver. I don't believe in him this year. I don't think he is worthy of a first-round pick, in my opinion.
Really?
Yeah.
Out of the first round?
I wouldn't draft him
not in the top
round.
10?
No, not for me.
Even in PPR, with
Even
all the
in
catches
PPR,
he's going to get. Darnold's going to throw to him like 100 times.
I don't think he's going to get the same volume he got in Pittsburgh. He has one of the toughest schedules versus opposing rushing defenses through like the first 10 weeks. I just think he's going to get off to a slow start. And
Interesting.
I
wasn't expecting that. So I figured Le'Veon would be the odd man out. In a lot of rankings I've seen, Le'Veon is that 6th running back out of those 6 we've been talking about. But it's tough, man. I mean, all right, so what receiver are you taking then? Hopkins, Adams, I'm assuming those are easily my 1 and 2, so you're looking at one of those guys?
Yeah, Hopkins and Adams I would definitely take over Le'Veon Bell at that 6th position, and they're another 1A, 1B situation. You can't go wrong. To me, I've had Hopkins the past 2 years in fantasy football, so personal preference, I'm going Hopkins. He has gone off for me. He's won me championships. And for that reason only, I'm taking him over Adams. But it's so close.
I mean, it's like you said with the running backs. Like, you're splitting hairs. I mean, I like Adams. I think he's a little more touchdown dependent when it comes to fantasy. Like, big play dependent, touchdown dependent than Hopkins is. Getting close to like 8-10 catches a game almost in some instances. So Hopkins is a little more reliable in that sense. But again, either way, you really can't go wrong. So we'll go ahead and transition, do a couple sleeper picks. Now, these are picks that between the two of us we like a lot, and kind of like late round guys, people that like what we have been talking about, clear-cut first, second round talents. These are guys that are going later in drafts, very like low in the rankings. So I'll go ahead and you give a couple of yours, and I'll give a couple of mine to wrap up here.
Okay. I'm going to start off. I'm going to go with Kalen Ballage. It's a Dolphins running back. I don't know what round he's being drafted, but it is very low. During the preseason, he's looked all right, but I believe in him. I think he's going to be a good talent, and he's going to take over that starting role over Kenyon Drake.
Well, Drake's injured. Have you seen that? I'll say he's in a walking boot. No one really knows any details, but if you're in a walking boot, that's not good to start the season. I've heard great things about him in training camp so far, Ballage. So
I've always had my eye on Ballage, but I was never really going after him just because of Drake. But now that Drake has that injury and that opportunity has presented itself for Ballage, he's definitely one of my top picks, even in the Dolphins offense, which is going to be iffy. I still think that he's a talented running back. He was good in college. I loved him coming out of the draft. I think he's talented, and he's going to take over and be that number 1 running back on the Dolphins.
Yeah. All right, yeah, so give me one more. What's one other guy you like here before I get into mine?
All right, I'm going to go one more. This is one, it's not going to be quite as deep as Kalen Ballage's guy is probably going like top 5 rounds. It's going to be Calvin Ridley.
Okay.
I really believe in Ridley last year. He kind of broke out last year. He had a couple insane weeks. He was leading the league in touchdowns for a little bit, but I think he even takes another step forward this year. The Falcons, I think their passing attack is easily top 3 in the NFL. They have, I forget how many dome games, but it's ridiculous. Matt Ryan is going to be throwing the heck out of the ball, and their running game is a little bit of a question mark to me. I think that losing Coleman hurts. Having Freeman as their true number
The
one
main
guy is
workhorse
dangerous.
guy now, yeah.
It's dangerous. He's not really proven to be able to stay healthy. So I think that passing attack is what the Falcons are going to rely on. And even with probably the best receiver in the league, Julio, across from him, I think Calvin Ridley is going to be extremely productive this
season. Me being a Pittsburgh guy, I'm looking at an Antonio Brown Juju situation right there with a 1-2 punch. You have Julio taking all the double coverages. You got Ridley, second year now. A bulk of his fantasy points last year came from 2 or 3 games. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I've seen that. He had a 40-point game one week. So if he can spread that out and be more consistent, I like him a lot, especially if he's going a little deeper, and if he falls a little bit, like you said, 5th, 6th round. But I'll touch on a few guys here really quick. One of my guys I had here was Darius Geis. I already mentioned him earlier when we were talking about the Redskins. Going as running back 29 on ESPN right now. That's 63rd overall. So falling into that early 6th round, or 7th round rather. I like Geis a lot. So I think, Adrian Peterson there, people are probably concerned. But as soon as Geis gets going, assuming he can stay healthy, hopefully, fingers crossed. I think he's obviously 100% now, so hopefully he'll be good to go. Peterson will be in there. I think Peterson will come in on some 3rd down situations, some dual running back packages, but it's clear that Geis is the guy. They've made comments that he can be on the field in all types of situations, so I like him a lot. I'll go in and do one more here, sticking with my Pittsburgh theme. Vance McDonald finally solidifying being the number 1 tight end for Pittsburgh. Vance McDonald's going as tight end number 8 at 99 overall, so falling into that late 10th, 11th round. Vance McDonald's going to be great. Roethlisberger led the league in passing attempts and passing yards last year. And Antonio Brown's gone now. That's close to 200 targets that are going to have to be distributed among these other guys on the roster. Jesse James is also gone as well. He was a nice guy that Roethlisberger threw to a lot. Very good pass-catching tight end.
That's big.
I'll say he's also in Detroit now. So it's pretty clear that McDonald's going to be stepping up, being the clear number 1 tight end for the Pittsburgh. So I like McDonald a lot. One other guy I'll touch on really quick, just a receiver, is D.D. Westbrook. He's on a it's a below-average offense in Jacksonville, but you got my guy Nick Foles there now. D.D. is really the only receiver that Foles has, at least well-known receiver that Foles has, and D.D. Westbrook is a reliable receiver. He had Bortles throwing to him the last several years, so not many people really remember that name, or he hasn't been fantasy relevant. But, with Foles there, I think Foles will be a very big step up from Bortles and who they had last year. Jacksonville, I don't think, is going to win a whole lot of games this year, but if you're looking for a very late wide receiver, D.D. Westbrook is going at wide receiver 34 on ESPN rankings right now, so I like D.D. Westbrook a lot too. Yeah,
I saw the list of the couple guys that you sent me, and D.D. was my favorite one that you had. I really agree with him. Last year he was all right, 66 receptions, 717 yards, and 5 touchdowns, and that was with the worst quarterback in the league. Mm-hmm. And he is being drafted, I think, around maybe wide receiver 40, which is insane.
I'll say right here I have him he was wide receiver 34, at least 34? On ESPN.
Is that what he finished as?
Oh, no. Oh, last year.
Is that what he finished as?
No. I was talking about this year. I think last year he was around in the 40s last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this year he's still getting drafted in the mid-30s, which is insane because last year he finished as I think maybe in half PPR. It was the 32nd or 33rd wide receiver, and he's being drafted below that, even though they went out and got Nick Foles,
the quarterback
which is a clear
improvement.
upgrade.
Yeah.
So, he's definitely a potential breakout candidate and great value.
Yeah, definitely.
Depth.
Yeah, so we'll wrap it up there. Just a shout out, we are going to be doing an 8-team heated sports fantasy league that we're going to be doing the last weekend before the regular season starts. So that'll be coming up, and we'll be going a lot of in-depth analysis and kind of just going over our picks as they arrive. So that's where we're going to wrap it up for this new first episode of the Heated Sports Football Podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. We're going to be posting new episodes every Wednesday night, just like tonight. So thank you guys for tuning in. And if you enjoyed the content, just feel free to let us know and just recommend it to your friends and family. We're really going to be back and doing this thing full time. We're all back at school here for the fall semester now starting up. So we're excited. We're all diehard football fans. So we're going to keep doing this type of content from here on out. So we really appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you check the website and the social media accounts. Those and all the other articles that we touched on will be in the description of the video, so make sure you check those out as well. And have a good week. Thanks a lot, guys. See ya.